Hello, everyone. This is Jason, otherwise known as Jaypalmany. I'd just like to take a moment to give you guys an update on the comprehensive campaign I've been running. And specifically this week is going to be some Homebrew Republic Squadrons. If this is your first time tuning in, I do a release every 2 weeks. One release is a campaign update, and then the next one is some homebrew squadrons that I've created for the campaign, and hopefully will get a little more widespread use. If you have any commentary, please go ahead and make a comment, and please by all means play test so we could see how these work and what you think, and we can go from there. So, a month ago, I spoke about the HMP droid gunship, so this time it's the Republic's turn to get one of the things that they've been clamoring for a very long time, which is the LAT gunships. So these bad boys are Speed 2, 8 hull, 2 blue versus squadrons, blue black versus ships. They have assault, counter 2. They are heavy, all for 14 points. Yes, these. I know the Republic's been clamoring for something with assault, and this is it. With this in mind, one of the key things that I was trying to do was differentiate it from the ARC 170. Because they fill somewhat similar roles in lore, it made it a little difficult. So with that in mind, Speed 2. I kept it at Speed 2 because these things in lore are slow. There's just no beating around the bush on that. While I would have liked to have given them Speed 3, just to kind of keep it in line with everything else, especially because Speed 2 is so slow, Speed 2 just fit lore-wise. As did the 8 hull. These things are beefy. Beefier than ARC 170s, as just they're tough. And so that Speed 8, or sorry, Hull 8 made a lot of sense to me. And then the anti-squadron of 2 blue. Again, this is a gunship. It's not really designed for dogfighting. Having it at 2 blue made a lot of sense. I had a variant where I had 3 blue. But I got some feedback that this thing does a dogfight. It's a gunship. If you were to have this or have a gunship go up against an F-14 or something like that, the gunship would be toast. So it would not do a lot. So that's why it's at 2. The anti-squad blue-black. The blue-black is especially useful to trigger the assault keyword, and so I felt like it needed to just to be useful, and then the fact that it doesn't have bomber because it's not really a bomber kind of keeps it in line points wise. And then we have counter 2. Now the reason I have counter 2 on it is just because not just because, but in part because it has so many guns, so many gunners on it, particularly the little bubble turrets. I know they're for shooting ground targets and whatnot, but even so, they are independent of the piloting, and so I figure that they could perform some counter service. And then finally, them being heavy. As I said before, they're gunships. They're not designed for dogfighting. They should be easily outmaneuvered, so heavy made a lot of sense to me. And when I told this up, I came to 14 points. The reason for the 14 points is if you look at the stats, the stat line, it's very similar to an ARC 170. It's got one more hull. It's lost 1 red versus squads, and then it's got a black instead of a blue versus ships. It does lose bomber, but it does gain assault. And it does have heavy, but it's also counter 2. So kind of keeping in line with the ARC 170 felt appropriate. It's a little less just because of the fact that it's heavy. I feel like one of the main benefits or major benefit of the ARC 170 is the fact that it's not heavy. as well. So you you basically have to sit there with those 7 hull squads and counter one and just plink away at them, which a lot of people do not like. So I felt like this making it 14 points was appropriate. I didn't want to make it 13 or too much lower, just because then you'll have potentially a flood of them. So 14 felt good. I could see an argument for maybe 13. You have any objections or comments? Let me know. Play test it out, see how it works, and then we'll go from there. I've also created 2 uniques for this one. Or actually, I should back up and say some of these were lifted from the Homebrew channel in the Armada Hub. I believe the user's name is Problems. I'll look him up later and mention in the next video. Came up with a lot of these, so a shout out to him, because I definitely lifted a lot of this from him. Particularly on these lats. This one, as well as the next one. So the next one, we have Hawk. He's unique. He has a similar stat line, except he adds in a red, for his anti-squadron, it's a rainbow, red, blue, black, instead of 2 blues. His text reads, while an enemy squadron you are engaged with is defending from an attack, if you've not activated this round, toggle your activation slider. If you do, the attacker may add 1 blue and 1 black to their attack pool. This was lifted from the X-Wing Hawk Squadron. It felt appropriate in that, it added he's a support character, and so having this as his text felt right. It was also nice in that he can pair well with Ahsoka or Deltakin or Delta Anakin, or any of the other squadrons, particularly ones that have Adept, just because you can make a super shot and add in a ton of damage. It's also helpful in that if you have a squad who rolls, makes the attack, and just doesn't quite finish something off, you can toggle Hawk to finish it off before it can activate. So I felt this worked well. He also has Assault Counter 2 and Heavy, 2 braces, and he's got all for 18 points. So he's only 5 points more than the generic. I felt that this worked really well, particularly in that he's with the 2 braces. 5 points for 2 braces on an 8-hull squadron, plus his text on top of that, felt right. Again, if you have any commentary or disagreement or whatnot, just mention it, and then we'll see what happens. And now we're on to the next one. Now this next one is honestly one of my favorites. This one's wholly my construction, and I particularly enjoy it both thematically and what it does for the Republic. And it is a unique called Jedi Strike Force. It's got 2 movement, 8 hull, similar to before. It's also got a rainbow for anti-squadron, so red, blue, black instead of 2 blue. And anti-ship is blue, black. It's got Assault Counter and Heavy, again, same keywords, all for 16 points. It's only 3 points more than the generic. But again, this is unique. Now, the fun part is the text. So when you activate, you may remove 1 raid token from a friendly ship, or add 1 raid token from an enemy ship at range 1. So this lat has essentially a Jedi Strike Force on board, which helps with its shooting, and then in addition, that Jedi Strike Force can go and take out an enemy's assault troops that are on board your ship, or they can go assault enemy ships as well. So I thought this was really thematic. I particularly enjoyed it. I also really like the fact that it can take raid tokens off of ships. There's almost essentially no way to take a raid token off one of your own ships without spending the corresponding token or dial. And with the Republic being so dependent upon tokens and token manipulation, I felt like the Jedi Strike Force in particular was very helpful in that regard. And then in addition, the fact that it has assault and it can add a token and raid token on an enemy ship, just double rate it, I felt was really really nice. The Republic doesn't have a whole lot that takes advantage of raid, but just the fact that you can double raid something can be painful, can be very painful. So it's something I really particularly enjoyed. And so that is it this time for the, well, I shouldn't say that. For the new squadrons, just the lats. I do actually have some edits to the droid gunships from a month ago, based upon some uh, or viewer commentary, as well as some in-person commentary. And I made a couple adjustments there, which we'll go through here. It's important to note that for those playing in my comprehensive campaign, don't worry, we'll chat about which version you prefer to use, because I could definitely see why you might prefer the old version. Without further ado, we'll move to the HMP droid gunship, the generic. So I'm going to go through this one briefly, or these briefly, because I addressed them in an earlier video. But it's got speed 2, 5 hull, 2 reds, a blue versus squadrons, and then 2 blue versus ships. Assault, heavy, grit, all for 13 points. So the difference between this one and previous version is that it lost a blue versus squadrons, and it also is 13 points instead of 14. Some of the user commentary was just that the fact that this was also a gunship, or viewer commentary, and so having where it had 2 red and 2 blue versus squadrons felt like a bit much, and so look at that. I said, okay, that makes a certain amount of sense. There was a reason why I actually gave it 2 red and 2 blue previously, which I'll get to in a moment. But I could see the argument, the logic behind it. So I took off a blue and took off a point. I didn't really want to get them any lower than that, just because with TF and assault, just that pairing, having them go cheaper just felt too much. So yeah, that's it for that one. And then on to the next one. So the Predator, this guy got a definite rework. HPM droid gunship. He's again same stat line, speed 2, 5 hull, 2 reds versus squadrons, and 1 blue, or 2 reds and a blue versus squadrons, 2 blue versus ships. He's got assault and grit, so he does not have heavy. He's got 2 braces and 17 points. But his text is the same as the Rebel Squadron Dutch, which reads that should be 1A. I'll fix that later. When a squadron you attack suffers at least 1 damage, you can toggle its activation slider to the activated side. If it was already activated, it suffers an additional damage instead. So, previously, when I mentioned that I had the generics at 2 red and 2 blue, and I do not anymore. So the reason I had it that way is because when reading through the lore, I saw that in one of the things that they did, particularly later on, is that these things came out loaded with missiles, and that were particularly effective versus squadrons and ships. And so previously I said, okay, well if it has a squadron loadout or a missile loadout designed to take out squads, then it should have 4 dice. But because it was a gunship, I still felt it shouldn't have all blues, maybe 2 reds instead, make it a little dicier. Would kind of help balance that out. So, but after commentary, some of the in-person commentary, and when I went to go look at episode 3, particularly in the opening scenes, whenever a couple missiles are going after Anakin and Obi-Wan, and whenever they explode, it does the buzz droids, and they come out and tie up Obi-Wan. That looking at that scene, it read perfectly for this text in my mind. So basically, when this guy he's deploying buzz droids, so when he attacks, if he hits, as he hit Obi-Wan and not Anakin, uh, then that squadron gets activated. So I can't do anything. Obi-Wan was definitely tied up, and his mind was occupied by all those buzz droids all over his ship. And then if someone's already activated, they take extra damage. Again, this felt really appropriate in that, if Obi-Wan was focusing elsewhere because he had already done everything, he was tied up mentally, and he just let those droids run amok, well, they're going to take apart a ship. So this text felt really appropriate. Now, 17 points. Dutch is 16. And honestly, I felt like Dutch is a bit undercosted for what he can do. He's one of my favorite squadrons. He's definitely my top 3 Rebel squadrons. And with that in mind, I felt like having this droid gunship at 17 was appropriate, particularly because some of the differences between the two. So this HMP's or the Predator, he's only speed 2, whereas Dutch is speed 3. That's a pretty notable difference. That's very notable. As anyone who flies ARC 170s or YT 1300s can tell you. There's a big difference between 2 and 3. So that's a point in Dutch's favor. This droid gunship only has 5 hull instead of Dutch's 6, so that's a point in Dutch's favor, although I still say Dutch is still winning on that one. And then, in addition, the Predator has 2 reds and a blue instead of 3 blues. That's going to make it quite notably harder for it to activate its ability. So that's a fairly big deal, just because you lose two facings that have damage. And as anyone who runs Dutch will tell you, if you don't hit, it doesn't matter. So that's a notable upswing in Dutch's favor. However, the Predator is not heavy, and he has grit, much like Dutch, or unlike Dutch. So it's going to be real hard to time out with just one squad, and he can tie up enemy squads very easily. So, one of Dutch's main drawbacks is the fact that he's heavy. And so if you don't activate Dutch first and Dutch doesn't hit him, then that enemy squad can fly away. Well, with the Predator, that's not going to work. Unless the enemy squad has grit, it's going to stay there and have to shoot the Predator down before it can escape. So I felt points-wise, it was right around Dutch level. And however, since I feel like Dutch was a little undercosted, I put the Predator up at 17. And then finally, we've got VTM 808. This guy has not changed, or not much. So he's got 2 speed, 5 hull, 3 blue verse squadrons, and 2 blue verse ships. Assault, heavy, and grit. 2 braces, and all for 21 points. And his text reads, when you spend a defense token, you may heal 1 hull point. So, not sure what happened there. The difference between this version and the previous version is he lost 1 blue versus squads, and he was 1 point cheaper. Incidentally, I don't think there is any other Separatist squad at 21 points, so I like the way that worked. And also worth noting, the way his text reads is when you spend a defense token, you can heal. So if this is the first time you're being shot, let's say you get shot for 2. When you spent that defense token, you would then heal, but you haven't taken any damage at that point because you deal damage after defense tokens are spent. So the first time, you would reduce the damage down to 1, you'd be at 4, and then the next time you get shot, you spend a defense token. You will then cut the damage in half as well as heal 1 hull point. So that's just a little timing thing that everyone should be aware of. And then something else I've been forgetting to mention is that these squadrons are available for sale. So I'll post these links, but you can get a number of LAT squadrons from Shapeways. You can get 12, all for $30 essentially, which is pretty decent deal. It's the better deal squadron wise than most others. And I'll say that the ultra fine or clear ultra fine detail is definitely worth it. So I got that version and then spray painted them, and it looks great, just in terms of level of detail and sizing. They fit perfectly into the normal pegs for Star Wars Armada, so definitely worth getting. I'll have a link in the description or in the comments. That way you guys can purchase from there. And then in addition, here's the ones for the gunship. And hint, hint, the Pneumonian shuttle. So again, this one you get 2 and 2 and again, I'd recommend the clear ultra fine detail. I've not tried the smoothest fine detail yet, 'cause I don't think that was an option whenever I first purchased these. So go ahead, you could give that a go, but the clear ultra fine detail worked great. They're clear, so they look almost like they're clear and green. So if you're looking at like some of the Star Wars shows where they'll see ships flying through, it looks kind of like that. Yeah, you can imagine that similar to, I think it was Summer mentioned on one of the Ion Radio podcasts, how you can imagine these being physical representations of your squadrons on a readout, like a screen readout. It kind of looks like that. So they look pretty good. You could leave them unpainted or spray paint them white and go from there. But again, you get 2 and 2, which is solid for these prices. Or I'm sure you can contact them and just request 4 or something like that. And then, as I mentioned, like I said, hint, hint, we got a new squadron coming up. It will be a separatist, so it should be a lot of fun. And that's more or less all I got. So I'll leave it there, and hopefully we'll hear more from me. Oh, worth mentioning, if you for those who are playing in my campaign or the campaign that Mercer's about to kick off, well, at least for my campaign, I should say, I'm going to make all the squadrons available coming up for this next round. So for those of you who are in the campaign who are watching this, enjoy. There's going to be a lot more info coming your way. If you would like to get advance notice on what the new squadrons will be, just hit me up or put in Discord or put a message in the comments. And you can join in as a secondary player, and then you'll get all the info and perhaps play a couple games and have a small impact on the campaign. All right, and with that, I will leave it to you. Happy flying, and best of luck. And remember, the person who has the most fun in the end, they're the winner.